Okay, welcome to the Exarban Foundation's webinar. I'm Shauna Dorsey with the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, and today I'm joined with two of my friends from UNO. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Marta Garcia Murillo. I am the Dean of the College of Information Science and Technology.
And I'm Brian Dorn. I serve as our Associate Dean for Academic and Faculty Affairs in the College of IS&T.
Wonderful. So Exarban's been partnering with UNO for a very long time. And last year, in collaboration with Dan Houghton, who's CEO of I was going to say CEO of UNO, CEO of Builder Trend, he and I proposed this idea for a class where we would help bring tech professionals and executive leaders into the classroom to connect with students with the ultimate goal of helping them understand what great jobs and companies exist in Nebraska. So we did it one time, went well. We had some placements, and we'll talk about that a little bit here later. But we're doing it again this fall. And so we just want to talk about why this class is important, how tech professionals can get involved, and some of the gaps we're seeing and things like that. So with that, I'm just going to jump into the first question, and this is for Dean Garcia Murillo. From a strategic standpoint, what most influences tech students from what you see to stay in Nebraska after graduation?
I would probably argue that one of the most important things is for them to become aware of the opportunities here in Nebraska, in the city of Omaha. But more specifically, the fact that many of our students think that a technology job is in a technology company, which in fact that's not the case. I can tell you that we have had instances with employers where they know that they are an information companies, and here in Omaha, insurance, banking, logistics is information companies. And I think that lack of understanding about how pervasive technology is in many sectors is what sometimes prevents students from recognizing that there are many opportunities here in the city. And again, it's a lack of awareness regarding what a job in technology means. The other thing I will say is probably salaries, and this is not new to this community. This was presented at the Chamber of Commerce annual event, and that was one of the most important factors. So I think we do need to recognize that as being an issue that companies should be aware of, particularly with young families that are looking potentially to have a slightly better income to move forward. And I will say probably the last thing is for them to have some sort of open opportunities, meaning that many of our students do not have family members or friends who are already well connected. So having that connection that we can make it for them will make it a lot easier for them to then ground themselves here in the city and Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Brian, did you have any additional thoughts on that one?
No, I think Martha's kind of hit it right on the head, right? That lack of awareness about just the range of opportunities in town, right, is the biggest challenge I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that with that, I'm just so glad that, we all agree that this class is important and not like every interaction will lead to a job opportunity, but it's just that just awareness building I think is so critical. So just building on that, Brian, what do you see as the biggest gap between what tech students believe make them job ready and what employers expect?
Yeah, so I think in talking with students over the years, but also in particular in the last time we taught this class, right? Students have this belief that they have to have this massive set of technical skills, right, to be ready for their first internship. They have to know everything, to have the confidence to be able to even start applying. And resoundingly, the feedback they got from employers was like, no, 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 it's an internship. You do not have to know everything. We know that you're going to be learning on the job, and that's okay. So one, I think there's this gap in sort of the confidence gap, right? That they are ready to start applying. And then what the employers said is more important, right? Is all of those career ready skills, communication, teamwork, time management, like learning how to learn, right? And continuing to learn and being comfortable with that. I think those are the things that students should practice more early on in their careers because those tech skills are going to continue to evolve and change throughout their whole career, right? So they have to learn how to learn primarily. It's not about saying I have the right bullet points on my resume to get that first job. So I think being curious, being a self-starter, and being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? Get out of your box, go talk to people, network. And for a lot of our students, that's a challenge, right? They've not had to do that before because they might be a first or second year college student. And it's a little scary sometimes. And so I think that is the gap that I see is just that the perception that they have to know everything to get started, and that those what we have historically called soft skills, right, have a way bigger influence on that first conversation anyway than the technical skills do.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just in a meeting with Dan Houghton, who I mentioned earlier, and one of the things he mentioned that is getting tricky for new grads, and I don't think we talk about AI in this conversation, but it comes up in nearly every conversation I have. But what's getting tricky for them is finding ways to add value beyond what's on the job description. So we know, like, great, you did what's expected, awesome. How else can you add value? So I would encourage students to be thinking about that as well. So for both of you, what type of employer engagement do you think really moves the needle? Like, is it guest speaking, those project challenges like capstones, recruiting conversations, internships? What do you think it is? All of the above?
I can tell you a little bit about from our experience in our second year projects class. And I know that, and from other experiences too, but I know that once the students get to work with employers more deeply and they get to know them and they know the skills that they have, I think that there is a desire for them, employers, to then potentially begin to think about an internship. I tell the students, at least in my class, that they need to make a great impression right from the beginning. So simple guidelines around how to dress, how to communicate, how to present the progress of their project, they're critical to be able to then present to the employer all of those, not only the technical skills that they have, but also the communication skills, the problem solving, time management that Brian was talking about. I think those deeper conversations with the employers are critical for them to get to know our students. And I can tell you, just in a different context, in one of our projects with AI Core, the employers are hiring them right from that project. You know, this was a wonderful experience. Can we hire them? And so I think those project experiences are pretty meaningful for employers to get to know the students. But I know there are many other ways in which the students can get to know the employers and vice versa.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think the thing that resonated really well with students last fall was the conversations with near peers. So these are people who graduated maybe a couple years ago. They might have actually overlapped a little bit. And it's easy for students then to see themselves in that role, right? This is someone who's about my age, who's just done this. They're navigating that kind of change in their life from being a college student to being an employee. And they feel kind of safer to ask the questions that are on their mind. I think when a CIO or a CEO is in the room, there's this intimidation factor, right? Because this is someone who's much more senior in their career and they're very successful. And they like asking questions of those folks, but I think the rubber meets the road when they're talking to someone who's about their age, has gone through some of those transitions, and is able to say, here's what it's really like, and here's what you need to be thinking about today. Right? Or here's the advice that I wish I had had 3 years ago that can save you a lot of trouble right away. So I think opportunities to do that kind of engagement is really valuable for students. And then the other piece is ways that employers can connect meaningfully one-on-one with students through things like resume reviews, mock interviewing, just to help them practice some of those skill sets. Because it's easy for them, a student to go to the university's career center and do a mock interview or something like that. But those aren't tech professionals, right? They're not asking questions in quite the same way or with quite the mindset that, our employers in town might be doing it. So any opportunity to give back and just offer a little bit of time for you or your employees back to the students can be really meaningful and build a relationship with your organization and a group of students that they might not have otherwise gotten just from coming to a career fair or something like that.
Yep, that's true. And it's interesting too, because then those students can help become like brand ambassadors, if you will, of those employers just by having great experiences. So it kind of works both ways. That's good. Speaking of employer and student connections, can you talk to us a bit about the placement outcomes from fall 2025? And what do you think in fall 2026 will improve outcomes, including those internship placements?
Yeah, so I mean, I can speak to that. I was really pleased to watch the students go through the interviewing process, from phone interviews to having the in-person interviews with employers and maybe exploring a couple different options and having to choose between different internships. So we were pretty pleased with the number of students that were getting hits in that process, the number of students that had internships secured by the time the semester ended. A lot of the companies here in town that you might know of, right, are Fortune 500s, even in some smaller startup companies as well. So that was really encouraging. And then there were other students that were actively in that process, but the cycle, when we got to December, they weren't quite done yet. So keeping in touch with them here this spring to figure out and how did it go in January when they came back from the winter break has been a little bit harder. But I think that we learned a lot from that process, just watching how we can help those students. So some things that we'll do differently this time around in fall 26 is we'll adjust some of the deadlines for things like draft resumes and mock interviews to make sure that that we're maximizing the impact of those things for students who are on that internship job market. So making sure they happen earlier in the semester because that starts in October for a lot of companies. So I think that's something that we will do differently. And then I think other ways of making sure that the employers that are coming in and spending time with students are actively looking for filling positions. That will, I think, increase the perceived value of the class for students. We had a lot of great volunteers this last year, 75 different individuals came into class over the course of the 3 months or so that we were together, which is just crazy to me that we had that many people coming in and volunteering time. And many of them came multiple times. But not all of those organizations were hiring in that moment. And I think the students would say oh, I had a really good connection with X from this company. I want to know more about opportunities, and they're not hiring this particular year. So I think balancing and making sure that we're increasing the number of folks who are actively looking to fill a position that we're bringing into class will be a win-win for both the employers and for the students.
Great.
I can tell you that we did a study with, like us, with alumni, and 75% of our students stay in Nebraska in their field. That means that at some point after graduation, they were able to find a job. So I want us to continue to grow that, and I want us to not only have them to stay here in Nebraska and in Omaha, but also for us to continue to expand the number of students who have internships prior to graduation. So that to me will be a fantastic success story.
Agreed. And I know there's an NU report that says something like if students have 2 or more internships in the state, they're more likely to stay in the state. And so the more we can do it on both sides, I feel like sometimes students don't really understand the value of internships. They are thinking of different part-time opportunities that are helpful, but these career exploration opportunities are so key. So, okay.
Yeah. And one of the keys, just to filling out to what you just said, if we can convert the summer internships in their part-time job throughout the whole year, that will be amazing, because then we can really ensure that they're only prepared, but they will stay in Nebraska, right? Because an employer is now investing in them much more deeply than if we were just a summer internship. And we have had success with some of them, with students transitioning from a part-time job in an unrelated field to a part-time job in the tech field after their internship. So that has been very successful.
That's awesome. Okay, next question is beyond the numbers. What metrics define success for the course? So I know we just talked about retention. I know that that's huge, but wages, placement rates, all that good stuff.
At a high level, and then Brian can provide the details. At a high level, I want to make sure that everything that we do in the college allows them to complete their degree, right? I mean, that is critical, because unfortunately in computing majors, we have a portion of students who leave for one reason or another. And more often than not, it's family obligations, it could be financial aid. So if we can embed them through these experiences with our local employers through a part-time job, such that they can secure that part-time job, aka in the field internship. It will release some of the financial pressures that they might have. They will feel that they're learning and that they have a future in the sector after they graduate, so that it will allow us to reduce the number of students who decide to opt out of our degrees. That will be amazing. So the less the students we have opting out, the wonderful it will be for them, because it's an investment in time and money. That if they don't complete, the outcomes at worse, right? So for me, at that level, is reducing the number of students who opt out of our majors, because now they have these opportunities opening to them.
Yeah, I think those student success metrics that Martha mentions are super important. Other things that I think about, right? We're really at an inflection point in the tech job market, right? A lot of uncertainty around how AI is shifting what it means to be an entry-level software developer or a cybersecurity expert or any of those entry-level careers that our students would be pursuing typically. And I think one of the pieces that a course like this or experiences that we're providing in the college can do in partnership with NTC is help reinforce the message that this is a great career field to be in. There are lots of opportunities, and like any career field, there are ups and downs, but stay the course, right? Because if we don't do that, right, and students opt out of this set of majors and then go to be a business major or some other thing, right? We could be in a really difficult position 10 years from now, just like we were following the dot-com bust, right? When everyone opted out of technology degrees. So I think the moral of the story is like, yes, things are changing, but here's how our local industry is thinking about it differently. And here's how you as a student can prepare for success in that journey that you're on, right? And I think there's these connections between employers and students are ways that we can have that conversation and get beyond the headlines in the tech newspapers or the social media that we're all seeing that creates a lot of anxiety. So I think that's a big piece. And then with that comes job placement rates and wage outcomes, I think are really important for students, because at the end of the day, right, parents and students, when they're deciding what they want to major in, they want to know, is this something that I can be successful in and that is going to help me with social mobility or help me with having a great life? And I think we need to amplify that, yes, that is possible, and things have changed a little bit in the last 5 years, but it's no less exciting of a place to be than it was then 5 years ago.
That's great. That's great. And if we were to scale this model statewide, and this is for both of you, and align it with internships, apprenticeships, other work-based learning opportunities, what does success look like it says 3 years. That's such short time to me. So 3 to 5 years from now.
Again, at a high level, one of the things that happened here at UNO is the very high success rate of learning communities. So the Thompson Scholars, the Scott Scholars, the Woolbridge Scholars, but those are small communities that serve a small group of students who get a tremendous amount of support and opportunities, and doors are opening to them. I would love it if we can have a learning community that offers all of these opportunities to all of our students. And I think we can scale it. I believe that just because you got lucky, or in many different ways, right? Families that have connections, that's being lucky, or having school districts that provided the resources, that's being lucky. But not everybody has that. So how can we expand the opportunities for all of our students, regardless of the background, the school, the family, the connections they have prior to coming to UNO, so that we can be the entity that opens those opportunities for them? So the success will be that every single student that comes to our college will have their project experience, the career tech seminar, the connections because they've had all of this interview preparation, etc. So when they graduate, not only they have gotten a great education, but they have also gotten great experiences with their partners doing projects, connecting as mentors, etc. Because then we will have done our job preparing them to succeed.
Yeah. I think one other long-term benefit that I could imagine, right, is that we begin thinking of the higher ed ecosystem in Nebraska really as a system, right?
Mm.
Where if you're at Western Nebraska Community College or you're here at UNO or you're at MCC, right, we have really close connections as faculty and administration. We're providing students the same opportunities and experiences that cut across the state. And we know how we can work together to make seamless transfer a reality for students, knowing that, in the future, right, a student is going to be in and out of internships and apprenticeships, and they might get their associates and then a couple years later want to continue on towards that bachelor's degree, and then they'll go work and decide maybe they need some more upskilling later on. And that coming in and out of education in partnership with industry, I think really is the future of what the workforce is going to look like as things continue to change. And so making sure that everyone's well connected across the state at our post-secondary providers and that our systems work well together so that it's seamless for students, right? Maybe that's a tall order, but I think it is possible with some thoughtful engagement. And we all care about students being successful and getting great jobs when they're done with their programs. And that's a vision I think we can all get behind. And if we can do that, well, then this other stuff will just happen, right? As those conversations continue about how do we make sure that we're well connected with employers and students are aware of all of the opportunities across the state, not just the ones here in the Omaha Metro.
Yeah, that's exciting. So speaking of the fall, we know that we have the class on the course calendar, which is very exciting. What are some things that you want employers to be thinking about? I know we said we're looking for employers who are hiring in spring 27, summer 27 for this upcoming class, but anything else that we want them to be thinking about as far as the fall 2026?
Well, I think we should make sure that they're aware to be on the lookout for lots of opportunities to volunteer. We'll be looking for, just like we had 75 people last time, if we are able to scale up the number of students in the class, we're probably going to need a lot more volunteers than even that. So, think of who in your organization has the time and expertise and willingness to share with students, whether it's some advice on that job market search, whether it's a resume review, whether it's an opportunity to be a mentor for someone and just, they would talk to a student over coffee once a month, right? I think there's a wide range of opportunities that we're going to be sending out calls for volunteers on with the help of the Nebraska Tech Collaborative and Exarban. And I would just say, encourage your friends to all say yes, because it's a really rewarding experience for everybody.
And I would like to emphasize what Brian just said a minute ago, which is it takes a village. And I think we should think about higher education not having this compartmentalized set of roles where the employers are here on their own and community colleges are here on their own and we in 4-year higher education colleges are here on our own. And I just don't think that we can think like that anymore. And it is very obvious to me with the partnerships that we have with the Exarban Foundation, with Metro Community Colleges, with some of the other community colleges in Nebraska, as well as this initiative, is nothing but an example of an ecosystem that we are beginning to put together, where all of us are collaborating. And the main objective of this, ecosystem is to ensure that our students graduate on time, they graduate without no loss, and they have an experiences within, and then when they graduate, a great job. So I think that this is kind of what we need to think about and not think about as employers doing this for UNO. It's more about employers and community colleges and UNO is working together to provide the best experience that we can to our students.
Right. And, to both of your points, all of that benefits everybody because the more engaged employers are with higher ed, the better the outcomes are on the curriculum side. Students get the feedback that they need, it just all the pieces have to work together. And like you said, employers just can't be on the demand side saying, where are the graduates?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we talk about them as students, but these are the children of your employees, right? Like, so
Yeah.
it's all a big community, right? And so I think it's super important that we keep that talent here in the state.
Love it. Well, like was mentioned here, we will definitely be reaching out with many opportunities to engage. And note that if you're listening to this, that we're mostly interested in employers who will have opportunities for paid internships in the spring and summer of 2027. So be thinking about that. That's who we're looking for. Alrighty. Thank you so much. Oh,
Thank
and I
you,
guess we
Shanna.
have a
Thank you,
couple
Brian.
minutes. So if anyone, we have a couple of attendees here. If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them. Let's give them a couple of minutes. Get my Q&A. Okay, well, we're waiting for that. Are there any upcoming events at UNO that you want people to know about? I know I'm springing this one on you.
Well, I mean, perhaps not necessarily a UNO event. There are several events, but perhaps something that to be aware in the summer, we're offering the AI Camp. And the AI Camp is in collaboration with the College of Business, as well as our entrepreneurship community. So the objective is for students participating or, high school students participating and, even our own students to come out of this camp with very complete project and then potentially move that project forward to make it a company. So out of the top of my head, that's what I can think of. But Brian, do you have any other events that we're organizing from the top of your head?
Well, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, and so always looking for opportunities to celebrate with the College of IS&T this year. So if you want to get in touch with us and have conversations around that, or if you have alumni who are in your organization and want to help spread the good word, we're always happy to share.
That's exciting. Awesome. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat, but we'll get this posted and add your contact info into the social media posts and all that good stuff. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.